Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Epic Flail. Competitive Warhammer 40,000 is a Psy-Op. It is run by Games Workshop and supported by various members of the community to create an illusion that Warhammer 40,000 is a competitive game. In this video, I'm going to set my case out as to why I think that is. And then thousands of people from around the world are going to get annoyed and send me messages on TikTok and YouTube. I'm sure you're not going to send me messages that you're annoyed. It's just an opinion. It's just a bit of fun. But we're going to get into it. And in this video, we're going to break down why I think competitive Warhammer 40,000 is a Psy-Op. I've got my lovely presentation that I'm going to go through with you. And I've got the wonderful Luke as well, who is doing the production behind the scenes. Welcome, Luke. You right, matey?
Hello. I'm very well, thank you. Very well. How are you doing? You well?
Desperately tried to find a tinfoil hat, but failed before the show started. Oh. I'm doing all right, mate. Yeah, I'm good. I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying these shows. I think I'm in a mindset when it comes to gaming and this show where I'm just going to say whatever now, Luke. I think I feel quite liberated. But I'm very grateful for everyone that is joining us live. I want to hear from the chat. I want to hear your opinions from the folks that support and follow the show. And I want to hear the opinions of random people from all over the world on the internet. So do let us know what you think to my case that competitive Warhammer 40,000 is a Psy-Op. Luke, I think we should just get straight into this, mate, and just get into the presentation and take people through some of my thoughts and feelings. But chat, let Luke know how you're getting on. Let me know how you're getting on. Feel free to contribute to this discussion. Or just have a natter and let us know how you're doing, folks. I want to hear from you. Luke will be reading out your comments. So if you have a message or you want to share something, you want to comment on my hair. I think my hair's looking quite nice at the moment. You want to comment on the one of my 17 blue hoodies that I wear. Happily take feedback on that. Want to comment on how wonderful this Necromunda box is that's sat next to me that Luke and I can be playing. Do let us know how you're doing, folks, and get in touch. But Luke, I think we get it rolling, mate, and start the presentation. We should have had like a little jingle or something there for the...
There we go. We're there.
Competitive Warhammer 40,000 is a Psy-Op. I think that's the best thumbnail I've ever designed. If you don't mind me saying, it took a very long time, but I quite like it. Luke, first slide, please. This is like, do you remember COVID?
Oh, yeah.
Next slide, please. There's a slight disclaimer before we kick things off. First of all, I don't really care about any of this. It's just a fun opinion and a bit of a laugh. And you shouldn't really care either, because it's just an opinion and it's just a bit of fun. But I know 40k means a lot to a lot of people, and it's quite a precious thing that many of us have enjoyed and played over the years. So I do take some sensitivity with that, and would ask that if you want to talk to us about it, or you're offended or you're upset, then please just become a member of the Discord, and you can access us directly all the time, and you can speak to us about your frustrations and worries. But on a more serious note, 40k is a great game. I'm not saying in any way that Warhammer 40,000 is not a great game. I think that it's not competitive, and I think if you're going to call it competitive, it's a little bit of a stretch. But that doesn't mean that it's not awesome. It doesn't mean that it doesn't take a lot of skill to do well at 40k. It doesn't mean that people go and win tournaments are excellent players. I'm not taking that from anyone. No way. That would be a stupid position to take. I think it's an excellent game. I have amazing memories playing Warhammer 40,000. I know ace people that play Warhammer 40,000. I know ace people that I would love to have a game of Warhammer 40,000 with. And I think it's great. I just don't think that it's competitive. And I think that people's perception of its competitiveness is way out of whack of where it really is. But that doesn't mean that anyone who's great at it or spends loads of time playing it or invests a lot of their passion into it is an ace and doing a great thing and playing a great game. So even though my opinions in this video are going to appear quite strong and quite disparaging, that's because I'm quite disparaging and quite blunt. No, that's because I'm just making a point around the bit that I think is nonsense. But that's not to say that I don't think that it's a really great game, and people that do well at this game aren't really skilled and aren't really talented and will be able to be amazing and great at loads of games. Not saying that at all.
Yeah, the takeaway here isn't 40k bad.
No, not all. No, 40k is ace. But Games Workshop are taking the piss. And Games Workshop have tricked many of you into thinking that it's competitive when it's not. And I think there are a lot of people in the community that stoke that fire because it's for their own benefit, and they all just nod along, and we all have to pretend it's this really like tight competitive game when it's complete nonsense. Because we'll do other videos in the future where we talk about some of the stuff that you see at the table. What we're talking about here is the rule set and how it's presented. But there are other flaws to people that think that 40k is really competitive. And we could sit and watch hours of videos of people playing the game and point out some of the ridiculousness that exists there. But that's for another day, my friends. Luke, next slide, please. In the show, we're going to talk about what is a Psy-Op. It's an easy word to say, but what does it even mean? What is a competitive game? I say that Warhammer 40,000 is a Psy-Op. It's competitive. Warhammer 40,000 is a Psy-Op. Well, okay. Well, what is a competitive game then? How does 40k fit into that analogy, that definition? Why did or does Games Workshop create this illusion? Why is it in their benefit to lie about the competitiveness of Warhammer 40,000? Like, why would anyone benefit from that? Well, they do. And I'm going to talk about how they cover it up, and also at the end, why I think you should care about it, or why you do care about it, because I'm sure this will upset a lot of people across the internet. And that's Gordon Ramsay. Unfortunately, there are pictures on every slide. I was going to put pictures of Dua Lipa on, but then I thought that people would just think I'm really weird.
No, I wouldn't think you're weird, Paul.
She's pretty great, isn't she?
Yeah. Salt of the earth.
It's a good test of someone's character if they don't like Dua Lipa. Right, so Luke and I looked in the Oxford Dictionary definition of what a Psy-Op is. So a Psy-Op is a game that Games Workshop staff play where they convince people that they're playing a competitive game designed by an expert rules team to create close-fought competitive games, when really it's just an incredibly unbalanced shit show where 2 to 3 lists are vastly more powerful than anything else or any other combination. To help create this illusion, they ensure a state of constant flux and change so that players always know change is afoot and that any big problem will soon be addressed. Furthermore, they relentlessly release new models and rules to keep players excited rather than aware that the game is competitively broken beyond belief. Are you doing a quick... Are you making it larger for me, Luke?
No, I'm not making it larger, just adjusting
Luke's turning this into an eye test, Luke. I don't know
all it is because of the images of you and I on the bottom.
Oh, right, you're just adjusting it live.
Adjusting the height.
Well, could you please go back into presentation mode, Luke, so I can read the rest of it, because that is so... Top right, up. Oh, there we go. Well, you know your shortcuts. The players, in their love for the game and the community and lack of an alternative, buy into the illusion, and it reinforces and validifies their endless slog to get better at the game. The only way to win an event or do well is jump on the most broken army, which is exactly what the best players do. So that's the Oxford Dictionary's definition of a Psy-Op, which I thought was quite interesting, somewhat ahead of the argument. But I mean, we know, everyone knows what a Psy-Op is. I'm just winding everybody up there. And I'm also just setting my case out at the beginning of the video because people's attention spans are short, and I thought it's good to just lay it out right at the beginning. Next slide, please, Luke. Is the chat just full of people agreeing with me and going, Paul, this is genuinely...
100%.
Going, 100%. Paul, this is genuinely just the most compelling case I've ever heard. What is a competitive game? So if my claim is that 40k is not a competitive game. So before we get into that and I've validified my position, I need to explain what a competitive game is, okay? I see it on this spectrum. At one end, there is chess. Chess, I think, is the most competitive game you can play. The best player wins every single time. And yes, fine. Technically, white has a 0.1. Yes, I know white has a tiny advantage, but it's the point by which it doesn't really have any effect on the game. And you can pretty much guarantee that the best player wins every single time. On the other end of the spectrum, the least competitive game I can think of is heads and tails. Because you just flip a coin and you've got a 50% chance of winning. And unless someone's cheating you, or they've got a technique by which they reduce the randomness, then it's no good. You could also have a game here where you just roll a dice, a 4 up. You know, Luke, on a 4+, you win. On a 1, 2, 3, I win. So a competitive game is a game where skill is the biggest factor in the winner of the game. And the fairer the battle is, the more competitive the game is. What I think has happened in Warhammer 40,000, I would compare this to doping in sports, right? So the reason we ban doping in sports is because 2 people can put exactly the same amount of effort and energy and skill into a game fairly, but if one player dopes, then they get a leg up on the other opponent. And it is not defined, there is no skill factor in that advantage that they get. It's because they've taken a drug and they've doped and they've got quicker, better, faster without putting the work in. And the other person to get to that point will have had to have trained so much harder, and they could do that. And they don't, it doesn't, just because you've doped doesn't mean you win, but it means that we don't like doping because it reduces the competitiveness, okay? Warhammer 40,000 is full of doping. The game is so unbalanced that you win by getting that leg up over other opponents. And when we see Warhammer 40,000 played at the table, because of how the game operates, because there are so many dice rolls, there's so much dice, that doping has a huge effect. That doping just like steamrollers over the opponent because there's just so much there's so much going on, there's so much into it that the doping has a big effect. So I would say that the most competitive game is chess, the least competitive game is heads and tails, and we should define what a competitive game is by seeing where it is on that spectrum. Now, as a point of note on this, if you go too far down the competitive line, you reduce the thing that a lot of us enjoy about tabletop gaming, which is rolling dice. And there is absolutely a skill in the application and management of chance and numbers and randomness. So a counter argument that people sometimes put to me is that no, the best players play the game so that they don't rely on the dice and don't rely on the numbers, okay? In Warhammer 40,000, you still can't play a game with a list that has been out-doped in that way. We are not seeing players winning events by going, oh, do you know what? That was skill-based. I was able to beat all those doped-up lists. It doesn't happen. It doesn't.
Mr. Hatch in the chat. And good evening, Mr. Hatch.
Hello, mate. Good evening, sir.
A comment spot on to what the point you're trying to make is Warhammer is not a competition against every army. It's a competition against the two most meta lists at any time.
100%. 100%. And you could, another important point I'll make here is, that's a good point, is that you can make a competitive game of Warhammer 40,000, right? So you can create the most balanced game possible and play it, and I'm sure it'll be a fun game. But when I'm talking about Warhammer 40,000 as a Psy-Op, I'm zooming out and I'm looking at it as the whole package. So I'm not saying that you can't make a competitive game or that two players could play and the best player wouldn't win. I'm not saying that at all. Because there's still, it's not heads and tails. It's still on this spectrum. And this is where people can straw man my argument, because I'm not saying it's not competitive at all. I'm saying that it's a psyop to think that we can take it seriously as a competitive game, because there's so much randomness and so much unbalance that it just doesn't tick the boxes as a serious competitive game in which most of the time the best player wins the game. Too much chance, too much randomness, too much unbalance. The game is just not in a decent state. Make sense, Luke?
It does. Counter argument. Avenger.
Hi, Rob.
No, this was a comment left on one of the YouTube shorts we put out of this. You said it as a psyop. Avenger89 said, "Tell me you sell off your last army and buy a new one every time the meta changes without saying it."
Well, he thinks I do that. Oh my god!
It made me chuckle. It reminded me of when you bought into Custodes and then they got hit by the Nerf bat. It's like the opposite.
Yeah, when I was trying to enjoy competitive 40k, definitely went through a phase where I had to be like, well, what's the thing I can buy that will allow me to play this at a competitive level? And then I realised that the people that were getting the most fun out of the game were the people who just stuck and just rode the wave when it came their way. So they were just like, this is what I play. And every now and again, this army's going to get a tickle and it's going to be good. And I'm going to enjoy that. And then I'm going to accept that it's going to get nerfed again. But what you will, without a doubt, notice in the competitive Warhammer 40,000 scene is players that like the competitive nature don't stay on shit armies for very long. If you look at the Brighton League, find me a player who for multiple leagues in a row has played a bad army twice.
I meme it up, but it was for me. It's been a race to the bottom. You've been quite.
You had GSC. No, first time I played, you played Demons.
Yep.
Oh, that was in 9th though.
Yeah, and they were quite good. And then I played.
Demons are good. Demons are punchy now.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you playing at the moment? What are you playing right now, Luke?
I'm playing Demons.
Oh, you playing Demons? No, you're not playing the GSC.
No.
Not playing the Guard.
GSC.
When were you playing the Guard last? Oh, that's right. You were playing Guard when they were pretty good as well, weren't you?
I feel seen.
You're all right because you've got a decent spread of armies, but and this isn't a dig at you because I do exactly the same.
Yeah.
But you've got a nice spread of armies so that when you've got one on a wave, you can play that and enjoy it and then pick another one up. Demons have had a wave, Guard have had a wave, GSC have had a wave, Guard have had a little wave, and you can kind of cycle through it. But if you want to pretend that it's competitive and you want to pretend it's serious, you need that flex to be able to jump from army to army.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're knackered. Right, next slide, please. Hopefully that makes sense. Well, it does make sense.
No, it does make sense.
I'm not hopeful.
I like the randomness and being part of a core mechanic was again something discussed quite a bit in the comments, and I think it's a good point. It does affect balance and all of that jazz.
Where does 40k fit into this then? Right, so I'm saying that competitive games are towards the chess end of things and heads and tails is at the other. Where does 40k fit in? Well, the beauty of the internet, the beauty of where 40k is you can look on great websites like StatsCheck, good website, great people. I don't know if they're great people. I've become like Trump there. That's what Trump does, isn't it? Great people, great website. I don't know if they're great people, but it's a great website. And you can just see the how unbalanced it is. Competitive 40k is at a point by which you have factions that are, what sort's that there, Luke? It's testing my eyesight. That
63%.
62.
Sorry.
On the right hand side, bottom right hand side.
Actually 64.
64. At the bottom of that is 33% agents. Above that, I think Space Marines are on 43. So you can see from the data that the balance of Warhammer 40,000 is absolutely all over the place. And we're not going to go into stats check and spend half an hour clicking through the stats. You can go look for yourself. You can click on every single patch and update in this game, of which there are a lot. And you can see that in that patch, there was an army that was way stronger than everybody else. And then that dropped down and another army came up. Like, it doesn't take a genius to go and do the digging to see that this game is completely unbalanced and there is doping all the time. If you could create a game by which we're looking at sort of like, everything was knocking around the 50s. People talk about the Goldilocks zone of balance and it not really stretching above 55. But it's pretty much always the case in 40k that you have a couple of outliers that are way, way too high. They're pushing the 60s. And then you have a whole heap of factions who are like sub 40, sub 45. That's an abysmal state for a game to be in. That's awful. Every single WTC event that we've been to, certain people before the tournament starts will tell us which list is going to win, and they're right every time. Every single event I've been to, without fail, certain people will go, that list is going to win. It's just out of these 4 people because they're all playing it and they've been practicing it for a while and they know what they're doing. And every single time that's come true. Rarely is it a case of, do you know what? It could be anyone. It could be any of these lists. It's super obvious, way in advance, who's going to win. And the constant cyclical nature of the game creates this endless turbulence with these stats and with these numbers. And it's just always in a state of flux, always in a state of change. Luke and I could do a couple of shows, maybe looking at the top 1 to 10 on there, right? So is guard 10 there?
Might as well be.
Ish, right? So from guard, we could start at guard and we could go up to the top and we could talk for every one of those factions. We could talk about a time between now and into 9 for a little bit where one of those factions was absolutely broken and was completely smashing everyone. And if you wanted to get a fair game, you just hope that you didn't play them. Literally in my head now, I could go for everyone and think of lists are a time where they were absolutely stupid. And it's this endless churn spinning around, going through. Now, so where I think 40k fits into that analogy of chess, which I don't think it's anywhere near chess. I think it's way further down their heads and tails. And even then, it's in this constant state of change, constant state of flux, by which it's just never the same army. It doesn't stay the same for very long. Now, some people might say, well, that's great. That's good. The constant change, the constant flux means it's always new and it's always different and it doesn't get boring and it doesn't get stale. So, like, what's the problem? There is no problem. That is great. That is brilliant. That's why 40k is a good game. But if you want to tell me that this game is a serious competitive game when that constant flux happens all the time, what are you talking about? Like, that makes no sense. Doesn't make any sense. The game's not balanced in any way, shape or form. Games Workshop persistently create rules, models, interactions, which are fucking stupid. I'm sorry for swearing. It was 5 minutes in, so it's fine. But they make rules interactions that are so dumb, people see it coming a mile off. The rules get leaked and people go, that looks quite strong. I think that might be quite good. And then brrr, comes that absolutely annihilates everybody, has to get fixed, and then a new thing comes out. And the community that we've got, and this is not a slur on the community in any way, shape or form, but the community we've got cannot fucking wait to get those lists on the table and play them. It's not like people look and go, oh, do you know what? This might be a bit too strong. I think this might smash everybody at my local club. I don't think I'm going to play it. I'm not going to take that to it. They get them painted up, they get them on the table, and they min-max it as far as they can, and they absolutely annihilate people for weeks on end until it gets changed.
Not everybody does.
No, for sure. No. I'm not saying every single person does, but there are, without a shadow of a doubt, big chunks of the community that rush to get the most broken things on the table, and you can see it on eBay. So any time a broken interaction comes out, what was the last one that came out? The Necron thing. That Necron list came out with those stupid vehicles. What they're called? The long cannon things, stupid things.
Oh, the Necrons, the Doomsday Arcs.
Yeah, how much were they going for on eBay? Whenever some of the guard tanks came out, everyone was rush buying on them. People don't want to pretend it. People want to pretend like, oh, I want to take the most broken thing. If something gets spoiled that it's going to be good, everyone goes out and buys it. And there's a shortage all of a sudden because everyone wants to buy the most broken thing. Which, who can blame them? It's not their fault. It's just the fact that the endless churn gets people endlessly excited. And I think the mentality is, well, best go get that while it's hot, get it painted up, get him playing it because that ain't going to last forever. So I think 40k fits in that, is there a competitive element to 40k? Yeah, it's not heads and tails, for sure. It's not heads and tails. But there are two issues with it as a game in terms of where it fits in. One, what I'm focused on here is the imbalance. I call it doping, right? So it's the doping that you can get. If you're playing Orcs, you're playing Daka Daka, you're doping. You could play an equally matched skill level opponent and you will absolutely wipe the floor with them if you're playing Daka Daka and they're not, because it is so much better than everyone else. And that's not to say that there are some things that could counter it, but I get that. Yes, of course, there are some things that counter it. But again, that's a straw man argument to the fact that it's still an unbalanced mess. Just because something can beat something else that's broken doesn't mean, oh, finally, we've made a competitive game. No, it's chaos. The other way it fits in that I haven't really touched on loads is the fact that not only does 40k have a balance problem, but 40k has a design flaw in which Games Workshop are endlessly competing with two audiences. One they care about more than the other. One is the casual audience and the other is a competitive audience, and they bleed into each other. It's not easy to just put everybody in those two boxes, but I'm going to do it for the sake of making an argument. You please the casual audience by implementing randomness. So the fact is, a lot of people that play tabletop games don't want to get the head smashed in. They don't want to play chess. They go play chess if they want to play chess. They want to get to the table, roll some dice, play with some models that they love, and they want to have fun. And they want to feel adrenaline. They want to feel dopamine, right? The reason we all like 40k is because we're all autistic and we all like models. That's one thing. I say that as a joke, kind of. But the other reason we like 40k is it releases dopamine in our brain when we play it. And the reason it releases dopamine is because we're rolling dice. And dice, gambling, dice is luck. It's random. And our brains feel good when we roll the dice because we get nervous and we get excited about the anticipation of results. We develop a plan and we go, well, it might work. Well, hopefully it does, but it might not. There's only a 50% chance of this working. That's really exciting. And it releases dopamine in our brain, and we like that. And that's why we want to play it again, because it's fun, because 40k is a really good game. It's a great game. It's a good game. I love 40k. But that's what casual players want. They want to feel excited, they want to roll some dice, they want to have a laugh, and they want to feel like they've got agency over what's going on. But they're not that bothered if they get to the end of the night and it's like, oh, the best player didn't win. They just want to have a laugh with their mates and roll some dice. So Games Workshop, over the years, for those of us that have played since we were children, have noticed that Games Workshop keep introducing more elements of dopamine hits. Their rule sets year on year, and I'm not saying they do this bit on purpose, maybe they do. If they're smart, they do. Introduce more elements of luck and randomness. Roll for the mission. Roll for the scenario. Roll for draw your cards randomly. Feel no pain. Like, it's all these extra things, all these extra bits are like, but this could happen, or but wait, this could happen, or but maybe this could happen, or maybe that could happen. And they do that because it gets you more, it's more fun. The more randomness, the more fun it is. And if it was just to hit, to wound, to save, and that was it, and you just move models around, it's fun, but it's not as fun as then introducing all these other random elements. The more of those random elements you introduce, there's a skill in managing all those roles, because, it's a skill, there is a skill-based game. It's not devoid of skill. It's not a simulator. You have agency over the game. But the more of those elements you introduce, the less competitive the game becomes. Back to my analogy of chess. There's no competitiveness in chess. The knight doesn't take the other knight on a 4-up. It takes the night because you've spotted you can take the night. So 40k battles with that and struggles with that. But ultimately, I don't think fits into that competitive bit. Unless there are any chat comments, Luke, then next slide, please.
Tom makes an interesting ham sandwich.
Hello, matey.
He's, it is way less random than previous editions. I do agree with that. I remember the old shock attack gun being like a 2d6 like table.
Oh my God.
Like,
yeah, that was wild.
Like all sorts of weird stuff. You could teleport across the board and...
Yeah.
Deep striking used to literally be random as well.
You could I remember deep strike being a mega scatter.
Yeah, so the game is less random.
Yeah, I'd take that from Tom. I think the game has got more balanced as it's gone on and has become less random. But I think they're introducing more elements of randomness that are a core function and part of the game. I.e., you can't even pick your missions anymore. You just flip them out of a deck of cards. That's mad. That's so dumb. That's not a competitive rule. That's a fun rule and it's a good rule. Fine. Again, I'm not saying 40k is a shit game. It's a really good game. But you can't take that seriously. That's not a serious game. Is there a skill in managing how those cards roll out? Yeah. And Tom, Tom's joined us in the chat. Tom is very good at this, and I've seen him do it at the table. We saw him do it at the UKTC that we went to recently. He knows what cards are left in the deck. You know, he knows that engage is left in the deck. He's not going to rule it out. So he'll adapt and shift his strategy around cards that are in the deck. That makes him a good player. And that I'm not taking any of that stuff away. But if you were to go, let's design a competitive game or let's play a competitive game, you wouldn't that wouldn't be a thing. That's not an element of a competitive game. That's an element of a random board game that you'd play with your mates.
Not a fan of the secondaries. I didn't like Maelstrom cards when they originally came out, previous editions, and I think they're better than that, and they've tweaked them and made them the best version of them that they can be. But I'm still not a fan.
I think it's a great mechanic for a casual game. It's easy to understand. You can chuck it in your bag. It's fun. So for coughing, it adds like an extra dynamic and element to the game, which is fun. And it means that you don't have to do all this thinking before you get to the table. What the casual player would say to the last ninth, where you had to pick your missions, that's just another thing you've then got to think. It's just another thing you've got to plan. I just want to play a game. Give me the deck. Fine. I'll draw my cards. Great for casual play. Dog dirt for competitive play. And I've seen people lose games, not because they deserve to lose, because they got a crap draw. And I can't take games like that seriously competitively. If I watch a game and I go, oh, you lost because you just drew a bad card, that's not a serious game to me. It's a good game, but it's not a serious game.
No.
Next slide, please. So why does Games Workshop do it then, right? Why on earth would Games Workshop create an illusion of competitiveness? And what's really interesting about this question is that I'm about to choke and die live on camera. What's really interesting about it, have you just spotted another spelling mistake? Sorry, Luke.
No, it's not spelling
mistakes.
It's not spelling mistakes. It's just me making it so we can see it.
What's really interesting about this is many of us will remember Jarvis Johnson back in the day writing a founding father, as it were, founding father of Games Workshop, right? He wrote a long article where he basically said, this isn't a competitive game. This isn't why we made Games Workshop. Well, not Games Workshop. This isn't why we wrote these rules, right? It's not a competitive game. It is a fun game. If you can't work it out the table, roll a dice, and whoever rolls the highest gets to decide what happens. That's a legit thing that's been in the Warhammer 40,000 rulebook for a long time. If you can't decide at the table what's going on, just roll the dice, and whoever rolls the highest wins. I mean, again, fine if it's a casual game. That's not a sign that a game is particularly serious. And I'm not saying that happens at events now. I'm just saying that's the heritage and that's the background. So Games Workshop for a long time pushed back against this competitive element. And when I used to go into the shops and I would go to events, I would play. The whole idea was to just rock up and have some fun. It was kind of like, it wasn't role-playing, but there was a role-playing element of like, just bring your models, bring your characters, get to the table, roll some dice, have a laugh. But over the years, more and more people have started to play Games Workshop games competitively. And again, we could go that deep down a rabbit hole as to why that is. We could talk about the emergence of a digital world. We could talk about tabletop games kind of merging with computer games and how many of us are programmed to think about games in a competitive way because we play lots of board games competitively. That's become very normal. And, you know, with any game that we play online, there's always a competitive element to it. So competitiveness in games has been completely normalized, whereas Games Workshop was born out of Dungeons and Dragons, which is more about the experience and the story and the narrative. That was the world of old, whereas now games, who wins? Who wins? Let's play. Let's play and see who wins. So Games Workshop creates that illusion because I think they have to. There are a lot of people that play Warhammer 40,000 because they want a good, tight game. They want to get good at the game. They want to get better at the game. They see it as a skill. They want to refine the skill. And the game sits within, it's really cringe calling it an esport. It's not an esport, although people wear jerseys to suggest it's an esport. But it sits within this world by which esports are very normal. And if you're into this sort of like geeky tabletop gaming world, then it's a bit like being into something like League of Legends, and people get together and play the game and they write lists and they share ideas. So this kind of competitive crowd is growing and growing and growing and growing. And the days where Jarvis Johnson could say, it's not a competitive game. I mean, imagine if Games Workshop did that now, that would be so bad. If Games Workshop came out tomorrow and said, this is not a competitive game, the internet would absolutely shit the bed. I mean, it would be so, so bad for Games Workshop. So they have to pretend, they have to make it competitive. And the reason that they want to do that is because the illusion that they create, they do that by endlessly distracting you with the next thing. So if Games Workshop stopped for 6 months and just went, do you know what? We're all off on holiday. We're taking a break. We're going to let our hair down for 6 months. The lights are off, but you've got your models. Go have some fun.
Shareholders would love that, wouldn't they?
The shareholders would absolutely shit the bed. But the game would just be the game would go so wrong. This game could not be left for a couple of months. It would just completely go to shit. So,
what do you mean?
Well, you would get faction that everyone would realize that the game is a mess, because if it was just left as it is and they didn't make any of the balance updates, every single event for 6 months would be won by the same list and the same army, and people's playing experience would go down the pan. Because what happens is the game is so unbalanced that whenever the meta stabilizes, people work out what the strongest list is. They tell everybody because of the internet, and then it overtakes all the tournaments and it becomes an absolute nightmare.
I think you could apply a similar logic to almost any game. I mean, Tom's saying you could leave the game as it is now and it would be fine.
Could you apply that to chess? No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't. You can only apply that logic to a game that's unbalanced. You couldn't apply that logic to any serious competitive game. And I'm going to mention the W word, War Machine. The difference was they wrote the rules all at the same time and they went, there's our edition, we're not changing the rules unless we have to. There you go, that edition's out. So, yeah, it wasn't the most perfect game. It wasn't a perfectly competitive game. And I could make criticisms similar to War Machine about where it was on that sliding scale. I'm not saying that War Machine is a perfect game. But the meta would stabilize and you'd go, oh, it's actually decently balanced. All the factions are quite near each other. But because 40k isn't balanced and they keep covering it up with more releases, it just, no one really knows what's going on. No one knows what the meta's like because the meta's about to change. And when the meta's always about to change, you're always buying models. There's always another thing. And this is perfect for Games Workshop. The fact that Daka blew up is so brilliant for Games Workshop because all the Orc players bought a bunch of models. They got excited about Orcs. Orcs trended on the internet. Loads of people started playing Orcs. And then they've sorted them out. And now all those Orc players are not going to stop spending money. They go off and buy something else and get excited about something else. Or if you think about your player base on all those Games Workshop factions, balance is bad. Because if I've got a list that's really fun to play and is really balanced and I'm doing well with it, I ain't going to change my list. I'm just going to keep playing my list. It's a balanced list. And let's say my second army that I collect, that's also pretty balanced as well. Well, I ain't going to change that list. When I get bored of that one, I go back to my other balanced list. But instead, it's chaos. So name me a list that stayed really good and really balanced and really competitive for any length of time. I'm sure someone will be able to give me some example of something that's...
Yeah, you shouldn't ask questions that will definitely answer.
No, it's fine. Well, I'm happy to debate people on it. But my point is that the endless churn is great for Games Workshop because you always buy new models. So it's actually it's their dream. This is their dream model. To say that something's really competitive and then when it's not, and to trick you into this illusion it's competitive and just keep feeding you is perfect.
Votan have been pretty good consistently, and Tau as well. Tau aren't exactly bad.
Well, Tau have been a little bit more up and down. Votan have always been super solid, but Votan have without a doubt had their spikes. For sure, Votan have had tickles and changes over the years. Votan is an example of a faction where they've not shit the bed with it. In fact, when it came out, it was the worst bed shit ever. They had to say, "Oh, this book that we've printed and you've all ordered, we're changing some words in it." Now that is an absolute complete mess. I've spoke to a bunch of the lads who are playing Votan, and they sort of sit in that. They go slightly under the radar, don't they? They sort of cruise a little bit under the radar. Votan
are just in a space where they just play the game well. They do what you want to be doing in 40k, standing on the circles, scoring secondaries.
Yeah. When they last win a tournament, though? When they last win an event? I know.
Tom won an event.
No, I mean UKTC Beastie.
Oh, I don't know.
Beastie event. This is my point here is that Games Workshop want to create this illusion. It's great for them. It's brilliant because it keeps you distracted. It keeps you buying things. And if the meta's never settled and the meta is never stable, then there's always a new thing to sell. There's always a new thing to buy. And it's great for them. Next slide, please, Luke. I feel really official. Not dressed like this.
Votan won a super major a few weeks ago, apparently.
Go Votan. How do they cover it up? So they cover it up through constant rules releases. The endless churn of content creates the illusion and keeps you distracted. They also create complete nonsense content around the stats. Like they basically just lie around the stats that take into account people that are just playing in garages. So they'll instead of using stuff like Meta Monday stats or stats check, they'll have people just submit. We talked about this ages ago. Do you remember? We did a show about this absolutely ages ago. And it creates this idea, this picture, this narrative that they churn out on their content that it's really balanced when it's not all. Slightly controversial point. And the next slide isn't. Are we going to do the next slide? The next slide is optional, controversial. But and I'll just make that point at the bottom. The other way in which they cover it up is they supply select players with advanced rules and models. So Games Workshop have done so well that they do great marketing anyway. But most of their marketing is done by groups that have nothing to do with Games Workshop. They just get the models in advance. So they cover it up through not only a Games Workshop getting you excited about the next thing that's coming out, but there's this whole raft of content creators that are doing the same thing. So there's just this endless distraction of the next thing to get excited about, the next thing on the horizon. The meta is never settled. It never stays long enough for people to go, this is the worst meta it's ever been. Instead, it's always getting fixed. It's always getting sorted out. There's always this new thing. It never stays still. You can see Luke smiling through the two monitors. Okay. Luke, shall I do the slide? Should we do the slide?
It's there, mate.
It's there. Oh, Christ. Right. Optional controversial slide. We can delete the optional bit. I'm really careful with my words. I'll say this right. Basically, the Psy-Op makes Games Workshop loads of money, as I've set out, right? It's fairly clear that balanced, stable games are very difficult to create when you constantly release new rules and new information. So it's really profitable for Games Workshop. But the other thing is that it pays to play along and buy into the bullshit and drink the Kool-Aid. If you buy into the idea that Games Workshop is 40k is a competitive game, then it's actually a pretty good position to be in. And I don't blame people for doing it. You know, I certainly would, someone who's created plenty of content over the years. If Games Workshop came along, we're going to advance supply you with everything that came out, and we're going to give you all the models months in advance of the being released. You can paint them up. You don't have to pay anything. All you got to do is put them on your show and talk about how excited you are to get them and play some games with them. Who's going to say no to that? 40k is a great game. 40k is fun. I'm not saying 40k isn't great and that you can have some awesome games. I'm not saying that it's a rubbish game, but it definitely pays to play along with this idea that Warhammer 40,000 is competitive. When really, if you want to win an event, you have to be playing with one of the strongest, most broken factions. It's not always an outcome that's based on skill. And the conversations that you'll have with people that do the pay to play is very different to the conversations that they may portray in that online world. Because if they were as brutal and as honest as they wanted to be, it certainly wouldn't be a thing that is particularly favourable at Games Workshop headquarters when they're considering who's going to get the models, who's going to get the releases, who's going to kind of help us, who's going to help us get people excited about what's out there. So it without a doubt pays to play along with the idea that 40k is a really competitive game, because you get nice and cozy with GW and you make tons of money. You make loads of money. You make tons of cash. Because loads of people want to learn how to get better at 40k and play the latest list and have the new thing and go smack. Like, loads of people want to get that information. Loads of people want to know that. It's an incredibly popular game. So if you've got that info and 40k is this competitive game, then come right this way. Come right this way. Next slide, please, Luke. Why do you care? If this is I'm going to rewind to my first slide at the beginning. This is just an opinion. It's just my opinion. Many, many people will disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine. It's just a bit of fun. But if this has upset you, or this has triggered a... Maybe it's because you drank the Kool-Aid and you're kind of creating a world that you want to be true rather than one that really is true. And I've certainly been through phases of like that in my life for many, many, many things. Maybe you're really, really good at the game. And I'm not taking anything away from people that are really, really good at the game. 40k is not an easy game to go and win an event at. It's incredibly difficult games to go win an event at. All the people that I've seen do well at events, really good players. Really, they could play so many games and be amazing. I'm not taking any of that away. And I'm not saying that this is an easy game to play, and if people win, then it's just luck. But I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that the idea that it's competitive is a bit of a trick. And in reality, it's not that competitive compared to many other games that exist out there. And I think if I was going to relent anywhere in this argument, it would be to say that it is not as competitive as people think it is, rather than it's not competitive at all. That's the only place where I'd relent, because for sure, any game you can play competitive, and there is a skill-based element to 40k. I just think it is so overhyped. Or maybe you just play Eldar, and you're just one of them people. Because they exist.
There's lots of things in the way competitive events are structured, which also make the competitive scene fall flat a little bit. So I'm going to rattle off a couple of bits of that. Looney's question, which you said someone would ask.
You're about to read out a Looney question to me live on the show.
Which hold your thoughts on this, because you said
Let me just finish my vodka.
You said someone would ask this. So if it's not competitive, why do the same players win events? So pause your immediate rebuttal to that. The other thing, which is on my mind as well with competitive events, is around something that big old Jim has said, which is you should be locked into 3 factions per year on the competitive scene to put the cat amongst the pigeons.
That's a cool idea.
In terms of rankings,
Games Workshop would hate that so much.
In terms of rankings, like competitive rankings, because there are diehard faction specialists that would mean if that rule was enforced, that would actually mean nothing to their going to events and playing their
they just
factions.
keep playing around it. Yeah.
But and 3 is not a terrible number. Like, most people aren't going to have more than 2 armies. A lot of people will only have 1 army that they play. So I think that's really interesting, and I like the idea of. For me, like the whole idea of the same players winning events and things like that is, I would actually prefer it if the bigger events, at least, where rankings are really important, you were seeded before round 1. So if you were at a certain ranking, you're seeded within your bracket, because that would make the result a bit more meanful. You'd have the better players, by ranking, playing each other at earlier points, and you wouldn't have these. The LGT, the biggest event of the year, you could conceivably, the first 3 rounds you have a very, very easy path into day 2.
Yeah,
at the very least.
Well, we see that a lot. That was my first alarm bell of this being a bit of a joke game, right? And I say again, that's no offense on anyone that plays it and is really good at the game, but I think what I kept seeing at UKTC is you get to round 3 and sometimes even round 4. And people would be like, "Oh, I can't believe I'm here."
Yeah.
And they'd be like, "I can't believe I'm here." And they'd be like, "What, you've won 3 games and you don't think you're very good at the game?" And they've just like been steamrolling people with like a broken list. So, I mean, it's not like they've been like, "Do you know what? I've just absolutely played out my skin." They're playing an army that's mad, and they've just got like really good matchups. So they've been doping. It's back to the doping thing, right? It's like the way I approach this is not, and I'll address how come the same players win all the games, right? Because that hear that a lot whenever I sort of verbalize this. The bigger question is how many games, what percentage of games does the better player win? Yeah. Because this is where we go back to chess. So in chess, every single time the better player wins. My hypothesis is in that a significant proportion of Warhammer 40,000 games are not won by the best player. They're already decided at list. If they're not decided at list selection, i.e. one list is just so much better than the other, they've got no hope, which is a good chunk of the game. So there's a decent percentage that are won just when the lists are drawn, right? That's a huge fucking problem with this game. That is a massive elephant in the room. If you've got a game by which you can go, oh shit, I can't beat this list, it's not a serious game. That's not a serious game. That's a fun game. It's a casual game. But if you can look at me in the eyes and go, I play a competitive game, it's really competitive, it's a really competitive game, but you can't just turn up to a table and you've just basically automatically lost. That's not a serious conversation. We're literally in fucking Narnia. We're in fantasy land pretending that's a serious game. That's not a serious game. That's a joke. If you can get to a table and you've basically lost before you even do anything, that's not a serious game. But let's say that didn't happen and you get to the table. Well, then a lot of people lose because the scenario's bad or the terrain's set up in a certain way. Well, that's another... So you're telling me there's a game where some people lose before they even turn up to the table. Some people lose based on the terrain. We're still thinking it's a serious game. Okay, well, let's pretend the first two things didn't happen. Everything's still fair. Now you're telling me we're playing a game that has so many dice roll interactions through your strategy that it just creates nonsense outcomes. So the two things, we're pretending they don't exist. We're pretending they're not an issue. But you've got a roll to hit, roll to wound, roll to save, then you've got to feel no pain, then you've got an invuln, then you've got to feel no pain on some models. And then some of those models just on one of those dice rolls could stay on the table and have a huge impact with no real negative effect. That's mad. But pretend that didn't exist. So we'll go through to the next one now. Then, so even removing the dice, you're then drawing the fucking scenario from a random pack of cards that dictate where you can even score anything on the table. That's mad. We've got like a series of crazy things that could happen before we're even having a level playing field. So that's my key premise is like, okay, the best players are always going to win the events. The same people will win all the same events because what's making them the best player is the fact that they've worked all this out to the point by which their list is so refined, it negates every one of those options as much as possible. And not only that, it is then broken as shit. So when you chat to these guys about how come you're taking this list, it's the strongest list. But the reason it's the strongest list is because it doesn't have many bad matchups. It has maybe none or one bad matchup. It plays well on all scenarios, all terrain. It doesn't have any scenario-based issues. It manipulates the dice to the point by which it doesn't really care that the dice rollers are fucking stupid in 40k. It doesn't care about 4+ saves because that's stupid.
I think as well, don't forget, like the idea, the best players, if the game isn't balanced or whatever, why do the best players repeatedly win? Is the best players repeatedly win regardless of, I mean, unless it was literally, as unbalanced as heads and tails.
Yeah.
And then it would be truly random. There's always, it's not so random where literally anything can happen. That's not.
No, it's not heads and tails. It's not heads and tails. Yeah, it's not heads and tails.
I think the best players would repeatedly win almost regardless of how the playing field sort of looked.
But they're always taking the most bent lists.
Yeah, but they're also putting more work in as well. They're also
because they get the models in advance. So like what put in the work, they're doping, right? They get early rules access. So they know months in advance what's going to be broken. They get it painted up on commission. They have access to all the armies, so they can build the army and practice the army and try it before any of you even get to an event. So when you're going, oh my God, Daka's strong. Listen, no shit. They knew it was strong way before. They've been refining it. They've been practicing it. Been getting all the models together. They've been prepping it. Like we're talking about a group of people that have access to all the models, access to all the information, play all the time, and talk amongst themselves as to how they can make the strongest, most broken lists. So, yeah, they're going to end up winning all the same events. What you don't see very often is people always winning the same events with the same faction, no matter where the meta's at. Now, that's a sign of a balanced game. If someone has been playing the same faction for 4 years in the same list, and they just always make it work, because it's always viable. Now, what me and Brett, we used to play another game together, used to talk about is, no one wants to play heads and tails. We don't want to play heads and tails, right? It's a boring game. It's no fun. It's fun for a couple of minutes, and then you get bored, right? A couple of minutes is pushing it. It's just a shit game. Don't play heads and tails. You're looking for a good player is looking to be able to play a game by which it says like a 60-40 and just don't make a mistake. And in another game that I used to play that began with a W, because of the rules mechanics, if you got a 60-40 matchup, because this is the other issue with 40k, right? If you get to the table and you go, this is a 60-40, Luke's got a 60% chance of beating me, I've got a 40. Because the dice mechanic is dog shit from a competitive perspective, and I could talk for hours about this, it's not a competitive mechanic. It's a really shit mechanic. It's great casual, it's shit mechanic. Luke is gonna beat me nearly every time. It's not gonna be 60. I know we say 60-40. Some mathematician will go, well, technically, if it's 60-40, you will 5% of the time. It's a phrase to suggest that Luke's list is better than mine. This is gonna sound like a Anchorman quote. 60-40%, Luke wins every time. It's not 60-40. In my head, because the 40k mechanic doesn't allow the 40% player to have a chance. There's too much dice. There's too much nonsense. There's too much. This is hard to put. This is hard to without going into like talking about specifics of dice mechanics and number of dice, right? But there's 40k has gone too far down. Let's roll loads of fucking dice, because the more dice you roll, the harder it gets for the 40% player to win, because the more dice roll, weirdly, the less chance of something happening. Does that make sense? So like in a game where there are lots of dice rolls, what's really happening is there's less, it's favourable to the 60-40 player because less is going to happen. So what's guaranteed at the table, your list is better because it does this. That's more likely to happen because you would just like, it's the feel no pain thing. Dice roll, dice roll, dice roll, dice roll. It's just pretty much certified exactly what's going to happen. Does that make sense?
No.
Luke just staring me down.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about articulating it, but Tom makes a point. The more dice you roll over time, and the more averages will happen.
Well, mathematically, yes, the more averages will happen.
Well, mathematically, that's how
not
mathematics and physics and
yeah
work. That's the reality of the world we live in.
Yeah. Obviously, the more dice you roll, the more nearer you're going to get to an average. But that doesn't mean that introducing lots and lots of dice rolls creates an outcome that you can bet on. Go back to chess. The more dice rolls you implement, the more random the outcome. Because yes, you're right.
No, that's exactly the point. The more
if you're rolling to hit, rolling to wound, rolling to save, rolling to save again.
So yes,
you're rolling more dice.
The more variables you introduce.
Yes. It's not about the number of dice. Right. This is where this is a straw man argument. Yeah. Of course, when you roll more dice, you get nearer to an average. But that's not what we're talking about.
Okay,
we're talking about more factors in creating certainty. Okay. So good competitive games, you can look at the table and go, right, there's a 70% chance of something happening, and you can be pretty odds on with that if there are not loads of dice rolls, right? But if you've got dice roll after dice roll after dice roll after dice roll after dice roll, and those dice rolls are around that thing not happening, it makes it stupid. It's back to the chess thing. The more things you introduce, the more variables there are, the harder it is to determine what's going to happen, and everything becomes a bit lucky, and everything becomes a bit fluky, and everything becomes a bit random. And the fact that I've joked about it on the show with Liam Macadam, like you get in this game sometimes a single 4-up or a dice roll that is right at the back end of a sequence. It's the end variable, has huge impact on the game. Huge impact. Games are won and lost on like ridiculous things. Next slide, please, Luke. I'm running out of water fast. What can you do about it? Absolutely nothing. It was kind of a pointless chat because you can't do anything about it anyway. You can just accept it and enjoy the game. And this is going to wind people up. And I know people are going to aggy at me in all the online things and all the comments, blah, blah, blah. But my end point is this. It doesn't matter. And it's been my biggest trap ever with any game, whether it be 40k or War Machine or anything else, is going too far down the rabbit hole of caring and just enjoying it for what it is. So I actually think accepting that competitive 40k is a Psy-Op is actually the best thing you can do if you're a competitive player, because it absolves you from any of that stress and that pressure, and it allows you to just accept it and enjoy it. Because I think that people that struggle with the competitive element of 40k, they put too much meaning and too much value in how they do. I've done it. They put too much pressure and too much and they overthink and they think, well, what could I have done differently? And I fucked up and I'm stupid and people think I'm fucking thick because I lost that game. And they get into all these. I've done it many times. And you get into a trap with it, and it is a trap. And the reason it's a trap is because it's actually not that competitive. It's a mad, super random game. And I think it's the most enjoyable when it's viewed for what it is. And that doesn't mean that you can't play it competitively. Of course you can. People fucking go to a UKTC event. It's a right laugh. It's ace. I've been many times. It's great. It's fucking mint. Go join a club like Brighton where there's loads of like proper mint lads playing games every week. Awesome games. Good people. It's ace. The Brighton club is mint. Go enjoy that. Go have fun. But to create this illusion that it's a competitive game and that lots of meaning should be placed on it, I think is a trap. And the people that do well know that to be true, and they use it to their advantage by taking the most broken things and manipulating all the daft things about the game. And it's in their advantage to keep pretending that this is competitive and everybody keep nodding their head. And it's in Games Workshop, like Games Workshop love the fact that this is going on.
Side note.
Yeah.
I'm all about the things you can control is what you should focus on.
Well, you know me, mate. I'm a big stoic.
Yeah. Growth mindset. Think about what you can change, what you can control. Yeah. And whether or not you agree with any of all this and you think it's competitive, don't think it's competitive, doesn't really matter. Just focus on what you can do to get better and or enjoy the game more.
100%. I just remember that nothing really matters. All that matters is that Leeds got promoted to the Premier League. And
yeah, there was a comment earlier saying just ban football, and it took every fibre of my being not to immediately read it out.
You just distracted the shit out of me. I'd be like, "Who said
sound
ban
like
football?"
HR.
Going mad.
I do herald Looney from a very corporate background, so sometimes it rubs off on the things that I say. Blue sky thinking, thought bubbles, all the rest of it.
Well, thanks folks for joining. Looney, glad you've joined us in the chat, my friend.
Paul immediately trying to steer me away from corporate conversation.
Don't do corporate.
No.
We could circle back to it.
No.
That was a corporate chat. You just fucking naturally fitted in. You were like,
circle back. Yeah.
Lads, thanks so much for watching us live on the show. I really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. I'm enjoying doing these shows with Luke, and I hope you're all looking after yourselves and keeping well.
Looney wants me to ask a football question.
Oh, yeah, go on, hit me.
Something about the Premier League, something. You were saying Premier League teams shouldn't have access to training grounds or top-tier football boots. It's not fair on those that don't have access to it, based on the analogy you were making earlier. I'm assuming it's...
football's a whole different... I mean, football's incredibly... Football, you know... Don't get me started on football. All that matters about football is that Leeds are marching on together into the Premier League, Luke, and I couldn't be happier about it.
Are they actually, or are you...
We're in the Premier League, yeah, we got it, we did it.
I thought you were in the Premier League before.
No, we kind of got relegated a little bit.
Kind of got relegated?
Yeah, for a little bit. But we're back, mate, we're back. And but football's a trap as well, isn't it? This is another like stoic thing that I've taught myself over the years. Don't attach meaning to things that you can't control.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's the worst thing you want to do. Celebrate the good things when they're there, and don't, you know, if it's something, you always grab an opportunity to celebrate something, but don't attach meaning to it because it's just a trap. Like caring about what a bunch of blokes are doing on a pitch kicking a football, you've no agency over whatsoever, is such a dumb thing to do. And it's the same thing with 40k. Like, if you're playing a game of 40k and you draw that one mission card that's completely shafted you and now you're not going to win, well, you haven't done it wrong. You just drawn a card. Don't worry about it. If you made a mistake and like you made an absolutely dumb move, then you can reflect on that and go, I can improve, I can get better at this. But if you just drawn a card, or you just, you know, Liam McAdoo's rolled fucking 8 4-ups, out of 9.
GG.
And then re-rolled the last one and passed that. Then, you know, it's just what it is. He just cheats. But, you know, you can't do anything about people that cheat.
You can flip the table. It's a good mantra. Why try?
Basically, lads, what we're trying to say is why try at life? We're all about just not trying. Just fucking...
Yeah. You can never be disappointed if you don't have anything, you know, to shoot for.
Yeah.
And
move out your house, live on the street. Just basically reduce all responsibility and meaning and become a nomad.
Yeah.
Just go sit in the streets. And
Marcus Aurelius was a chump.
who's slagging off Marcus Aurelius? Oh, wait. It's Tom Hampshire. It's Tom Hampshire. I tell you what, Tom, that book is mint. That book that Tom got me to read is fucking great. Pax. About Tom, good shout on that book, mate. It is excellent. And it does raise some questions over Marcus Aurelius's questionable lineage. Well, not his lineage, but his successions. Great book. Great book.
Shots fired. Caesar didn't buy a...
What's he saying?
I can't even say it.
Say it.
So this is all loony now. Leeds.
This is all loony. This is all loony. Go on.
Leeds are looking a bit like Birmingham Council Service right now, and Caesar didn't die by a tree. You are tired.
I don't know how many times I can talk about the Caesar thing.
Pax Workshop.
Anybody that goes to he died by a tree. It literally, he genuinely died by a tree. I've seen the plaque. There was lots of people looking at it. I've even proved this by showing people online. Luke, when he gets this Necromunda painted up, so Luke and I have split the box today. Luke's got his gang. He's going to paint it up. We're getting the terrain painted up, and then we're going to start getting some Necromunda games on the stream. We're going to have lots of fun ways for people that are watching to interact and get involved in that. It's going to be a bit of a giggle and a bit of fun. We're going to play a bit of Necromunda, because Necromunda is probably a nice little bridge, isn't it? It's got that little 40k tickle. It's the 40k universe, but also hopefully we won't take it too seriously. It's all very well and good me saying these things, but me doing them in practice is always slightly different, isn't it, Luke?
Absolutely. I don't know how competitive Necromunda is. People try and play it competitively, but I feel like if you're... And maybe that's where people get a bit... definitely the casual crowd of 40k. Like the idea that you play any war game or miniatures game competitively is anathema to some people. Necromunda is going to be all about trying to stab people in the eye with a spoon. Like,
Necromunda is all about the thematic madness and weirdness of things happening, and it's all about the stories of your lads surviving the next game. Do you know what I mean? They've only got one leg or something. They're like movement 2, or whatever else. But
limping across the board.
Chat will be able to name all characters and stuff like that. So we'll create some laughs with characters on that. Right, Luke, I've mentally exhausted myself by ranting at the camera. I don't know how long I've been doing it, but I think I need to lie down.
The outro music.
Let's go have a game of competitive 40k, Luke.
Let's do it. Yeah, you were called out earlier. So when was the last time you played Comp 40k?
I've no play. It doesn't exist. It's a trick question.
Hey.
I've only ever played casual. Thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate you loads. It means a lot for you watching, tuning in, getting involved in the chat. Chat to you on the Discord. Look after yourselves and each other. Take it easy. And Luke and I will see you next Wednesday for another show. And then soon some Necromunda streams. We're going to play some games, lads. Games. I just wave. Stare and wave. It's like live TV back in the day.